If you had a microscope and could look at a piece of a leaf, you would see thousands of tiny openings which branch out until the leaf has all of the materials it needs. What happens now?
I know why you're here. You want to learn After Effects and you can't wait to get going, I'm sure. So rather than me giving you a big old boring lecture about a bunch of buttons and windows and things that you need to press, I'm going to teach you 25 steps that you can take to make your first animation right now. I'm going to go really fast, but I'm going to call out all of the steps, so you should definitely be able to follow along with me. Step 1. Find the most recent version you have of After Effects in your Applications window and double-click on it to launch the application. This generally takes a few minutes, but give it a second and it will open up. There we go. So now step 2 is to press this button right here for New Project. Okay, that opens a new project. Now you can work in it. And step 3 is to press this button right here to create a new composition. That now opens the composition settings window. And step 4 is to pull down this preset tab here and find the composition settings for HD TV 1080 2997. I'm going to take 1 second to explain that 1080 is kind of the size of the composition. It's 1920 by 1080, and 29.97 is the frame rate. So that's the number of frames per second, which we're going to always think of as 30 frames per second in this class, okay? But that's the preset you want, HD TV 1080 29.97, okay? And additionally, as part of this step, I want you to call this my first animation. Awesome. Oops, I wrote first. My first animation. And hit OK. I should just explain really quickly before we move on that a composition in After Effects is where you do your work within your project, okay? It's sort of the canvas upon which you paint the animation, if you will. And when you hit OK on that composition settings window, it puts your composition up here and gives it that name, and it also opens it down here in this tab, which is your little timeline, right? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, which is step 5, is make a new solid. And we do that by pressing Command Y, okay? In After Effects, a solid is a full screen of color, right? So find a good color, click on this color window here, and that'll open this. And then, I'm really into these sort of cyan colors, so I'm going to choose something like this. And you just want to hit OK here. Okay. Now you can see there's a full screen of color, and it gave it that name, medium gray cyan solid. It names it after the color, often in fairly specific ways. Step 6, making sure that your solid is not selected down here. Click off of it and go up top to your tool panel, which in After Effects is up top here on the left. Select your rectangle tool, but hold down on the button, and that will open up this little side menu. And then you can select your ellipse tool. All right, so select that. And now step 7 is go over here and pick a nice fill color for your circle that we're about to make, okay? I like this light yellow, the way it goes with the cyan. Make sure that there's no stroke on there and that it's 0 pixels, okay? And then step 8 is to go back over here to your viewing window, click and drag and hold down on Shift, which will make it a perfect circle, and make a circle like that right there, okay? And now step 9 is to rename this. So go down here, select this layer, and hit Return, and call it Circle 1, all right? And then hit Return again. And by the way, that's the way you rename anything in any part of After Effects. You select it, press Return, type the name, and press Return again, okay? Step 10 is to press R to reveal the rotation property of the circle. Step 11 is a really big one. You see this little icon here next to the word rotation? It's sort of looks like a stopwatch, kind of. Well, it's supposed to be a stopwatch in any case. It's gotten a bit more abstract over the years, but this is a really important part of After Effects. In order to make your first keyframe, you have to press this button here, okay? So let's press the stopwatch button, and you see here it's made a keyframe. And I should really explain that a keyframe is an indicator for After Effects of, for example, the rotation property of this circle at this time, which is right of the first frame of our composition, is set to 0, okay? So that's what that keyframe means. And so now it's possible to, step 12, grab the current time indicator here by the top blue part and drag it down in the composition until you get to 3 seconds, right? And then press N to set the end of the work area right here. And I should explain, by the way, that the way I knew I was at 3 seconds is by looking at this timecode indicator, which is right here. And timecode is read as hours, minutes, seconds, and frames, right? So now we're at 3 seconds, right? Awesome. So now let's move along to step 13. Step 13 is to change the rotation value and make a new keyframe. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to click in this and type 3, all right? And then hit return. Now, rotation is a special kind of property in that the values are listed as whole rotations and then degree rotations. So I've now set this to rotate 3 whole times in 3 seconds, all right? So step 14 is now to press Shift and S to reveal the scale property and keep the rotation property and those keyframes open here, okay? And now step 15 is to go back to the beginning and make a scale keyframe, the first one, by clicking on the stopwatch. Step 16 is to click on this little button right here and go to the next rotation keyframe, right? And then step 17 is to click here where it says 100 in scale and type 0 and then press return. And now you can see that the circle has disappeared altogether off the screen, which is pretty cool. And now step 18 is to press the spacebar and look at our animation. Step number 19 is to select circle 1 and press Command D to duplicate it. Step 20 is to select circle 2 and press U, the letter U, not U, but the letter U, and that will reveal all animated properties of that layer. Step 21, making sure you're at the start of the comp, right? Select both of the rotation keyframes for circle 2. Now this is a little bit tricky. What I want you to do is with both of them selected at the start, at your key, when your current time indicator is over the first keyframe, I want you to roll this value up to 180, all right? And what that's doing is actually changing the value for both the first keyframe and the last keyframe because we had both selected. So if you compare them to the ones that we duplicated now, the first rotation keyframe for circle 1 is at 0, but now the first rotation keyframe for circle 2 is at 180 because we pushed it up. And similarly, the last keyframe of rotation for circle 1 is at 3 whole rotations and 0 degrees. But here for circle 2, it's now 3 whole rotations and 180 degrees, right? We've pushed it all 180 degrees up, right? So now we can watch this down and check out how awesome it is, right? It's like 2 little circles chasing each other down an infinite tunnel over and over again, right? Step 22, go up here to composition and add to render queue. Okay, that opens this render queue over here, which is in a little tab next to your composition. And now step 23, click on the words My First Animation here, and that will open this output module, which is just a fancy way of saying, pick a folder that you want it to go in and make sure it's named correctly, which in this case it is, right? So with your folder selected, press save. And now step 24, press the render button. The best sound of all. And now finally, step 25. Find your animation where you rendered it and double click it, open it in QuickTime, and watch it down. So awesome. Alternate step number 26. Give yourself a little golf clap because you just completed your first animation. Congratulations.
If you had a microscope and could look at a piece of a leaf, you would see thousands of tiny openings which branch out until the leaf has all of the materials it needs. What happens now?